Pictures up, quiet please.
Parker? What's on your mind?
I've thought about this all night. Whether what I'm about to do is the right thing or not.
Let me go in and talk to him alone, Dr. Mallory.
I did so only because he was working along lines contrary to the good of mankind.
Well, Rangers, looks as though Agents McKenzie and Hopkins are going to have to get to that hacienda and get there mighty fast.
You crush all opposition and make the most powerful man in the world.
Hello, everybody. Here we are today recording for our brand new podcast. This is Good Movie Hunting.
Yeah, it is.
Where I, the host, Sequoia Blackburn, am hosting this wonderful podcast, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Kara Harbor.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Here we are today. What our goal is of this podcast is we are talking about some of the best and the worst movies out there. That's very controversial for a lot of people. And the most controversial part, I believe, is that we will be basing this off of Rotten Tomatoes scores, which is very controversial for a lot of people, I think.
But we can let them decide for us. So if it's wrong in your eyes, you can just blame Rotten Tomatoes and not us, okay?
Exactly. And at the end, maybe we'll give our own little rating and say, hey, critics said it was bombastic, but
yeah,
I believe it's
0 wine glasses out of 10.
Exactly. Yes, that's how all of our ratings should go. Hopefully at least we get one wine glass. I mean, we want a little bit of wine up in here.
Yeah, maybe more wine glasses the worse it is, so we can get sloshed to get through it.
So here we go. Today we are talking about the man, the myth, the legend.
The Legend of the Fall, some might say.
Yes. Mr. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is a classic. He's the hot guy everybody loves.
Shania Twain says so, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and he's just got those, he kind of has like surfer boy looks. I feel like, he's got the long blonde hair and stuff,
Yeah, like he's not necessarily clean cut, but but he's also just like gentleman man,
and he can do both, which is great.
Yeah.
I think that defines a hot guy if he can have versatility. He can be rugged, he can put on a suit and tie and look sexy, in a
military uniform apparently,
which we see a lot in his films, which is interesting. All right, here we go. We're talking about born as William Bradley Pitt, December 18th of 1963. I believe we did the math. He is 58 years old. Yeah.
Still in my dating range.
There you go. Yeah, you're like, all right, once he hits the 60s, maybe not. But he's still in the 65. Sweet spot.
Yeah.
65.
Listen.
That's the cutoff here.
So not to put you on the spot, but what sun sign do you know?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I think we talked about this too. Like we wanted to say, we wanted to incorporate that into this.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's very telling, sometimes it's not at all, but it would be a very interesting factoid to know about the man.
So Mr. Brad Pitt is a Sagittarius.
Okay, I like it. That's my rising.
I feel like from what I know, about Sagittarius signs, it incorporates like what we talked about, having a bit of that ruggedness. He's like down to earth, but he's like a good guy. I think Sagittarius is one of the good signs. Has that
depth. Yeah. Okay. Yay for Sagittarius.
There we go. All right.
Cheers
shout out Sagittarius. Yeah, great. All right. So Mr. William Bradley Pitt, who is a Sagittarius, he, like I said, he looks very good for his age. I couldn't believe it when I looked that up. Do you think he's had any plastic surgery?
It definitely doesn't look like it. You can't really tell any of the telltale signs, but I mean, he's always looked like he was bigger than life. He's always looked like he can't be real. He has to be manufactured, and he hasn't been, so.
Right? Almost like a rugged Ken doll or something.
Yeah. That's a good explanation for Brad Pitt.
Yeah. And it's funny because he, we talk about him being like he can be very like composed and professional, but he was actually born in Oklahoma, in Shawnee,
Nuh-uh.
Oklahoma. Yes.
I know exactly where that is. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know his hometown.
Okay.
You know his roots. You might be closer to him than most.
Wonder if he frequents.
Ooh. You might spot him there.
Yeah.
He was born to parents William Alvin Pitt and Jane Etta. And even though he was born in Oklahoma, he was actually raised in Springfield, Missouri. So he still kept those like southern roots, but he distanced himself a little from Oklahoma, which
Don't blame him. Same.
you know what they say that here we are in Texas, that Texas has a big rivalry with Oklahoma.
Right.
They don't really like each other. So
Yeah.
good for him that he left Oklahoma. We can
Good
support
boy.
that. Good job. He is the oldest child out of out of 3 children, which I see that. Like I definitely see that, older sibling vibe from him.
All the things that come with that. Yeah, I can see it.
Yes, as an older child, I relate to that. You know. He has 2 younger siblings named Douglas and Julie. And he was raised, surprise, conservative Christian.
Hello, Bible Belt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because when he was living in Missouri, he went to Kickapoo High School.
Yeah, he did. Okay.
Which is great. I feel like I'll never hear another good, high school name like that.
Kickapoo.
Like that takes the cake right there. He was very involved, like in a lot of activities in school and stuff like that, like golf, swimming, tennis, key club, debate, and musicals, which
I feel like.
You
Can you imagine CSI featuring Brad Pitt? I would watch the heck out of that one.
I cannot imagine it. That
I
sounds
can.
amazing.
I am right now. It's nice.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, just slap his face on there. Everybody would be watching CSI every week.
Yeah.
Their ratings would just be woo through the roof.
Yeah, #1 fan over here.
Absolutely. So then he stayed in Missouri. He went to the University of Missouri in 1982, and he decided to major in journalism and advertising, which is interesting. It's like almost like film adjacent.
Right.
But, he kind of had an idea of what he wanted to do. Not quite, But interestingly enough, he did put a lot of work in there, but he ended up dropping out 2 weeks before completing his degree. He was right there. He was so close, and he was like, you know what? I need to go to LA. He just had to happen. He was like, I want to be a movie star, and that's where movie stars are made. You got to go to LA.
And we can get into this when we cover this movie, but one of the movies that we're covering, actually, I can see his role in that movie, Moneyball. I can see his role in that movie really tying to that personal experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he said that, as he was deciding, that he wanted to be an actor, that he did want to go pursue that in LA. That some of his big acting heroes were people like Gary Oldman, Sean Penn, and Mickey Rourke, which is interesting. I wonder how they did influence him, because I don't really feel like I see their acting styles too much reflected in, who he was. I wonder if he just more admired, like, that they were good at what they did, not necessarily like that he wanted to, emulate that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And as he got his start in film and everything, there were a couple movies that, contributed to his rise, but it seems like the movie that was, most recognized as like his breakthrough into film was Fight Club. And that's a big one. I feel like people will be, this will be very controversial for people to hear, like what his best movie was, because I think a lot of people would say, oh, it's got to be Fight Club.
Yeah, it's such a classic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of those movies that you can watch 100 times. You can pick up something new every time you watch it, and it's never not relevant.
Yeah, it's so dynamic. There's so much going on in that movie and everything. And it really unearthed like a side of him that made critics and fans like him a lot. They were like, okay, he can do something different.
The dichotomy of that man.
Yes, he's not just like the pretty boy, or whatever. Like, he can be rough and wild, and he can fight and
a little unhinged.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's really, I think, what helped him break into, you know, the film world, is being able to show that level of skill, you know?
Yeah, because I wonder, because of his looks, if he would have wound up in more of the rom-com, staying only in that because of his looks, if he would have been like the romantic pursuit in every movie that he did.
Yeah, I think that I have a feeling, I mean, I never read it in like his interviews necessarily, but it seems like he was determined to break through. Like, he did not want to be typecast, you know. He saw how he was getting cast. He saw how he was getting cast, you know, in his early movies, and he was like, okay, it's time to do something different, you know. I need to be able to show the world that I can be something else, you know, not just what is on the surface.
Good for him.
And actually in Variety, they quoted him as saying, Variety was quoted as saying that he was able to be cool, charismatic, and more dynamically physical, perhaps, than his previous breakthrough role in Thelma and Louise. The movie's initial release in box offices was not as great as, you know, expected. They thought it was going to be way bigger. But later, you know, like we said, it became like a cult classic. You know, it's a really big one that a lot of fans consider to be his best movie performance. You know. And then there's always that, you know, that versus, you know, of critics versus fans, you know, that kind of opinion of what really, what can make the best movie. So Mr. Brad Pitt has been married twice. First to Jennifer Aniston from 2000 to 2005, and then Angelina Jolie from 2014 to 2016. But interestingly enough, him and Angelina Jolie were actually together for 7 years before they got married. Which I
was surprised when you said that they were married for such a short time, because I feel like they were together for so long. So that checks out.
Yeah, they were in the public eye for a long time as being together. And then once they got married, it only lasted 2 years. But from everything I've seen, and I mean, obviously, once you bring children into the equation, you know, you're going to have to fight to be more amicable towards each other, you know, which I think has helped. You know, here in the media today, when you look at them, like, you don't really see much animosity going on, which I feel like is rare too in celebrities and stuff like that,
because they have the platform for sure to cast some shade on the other one. So good on them for not doing that to their children's parents.
Exactly. And so Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt had no children together, but Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt had 3 biological children together. Their first was Shiloh, and then they had twins, Knox and Vivienne. And actually, the twins were born in Paris, which I think is cool. Because Vivienne seems like a very French name, you know?
Oui.
Oh, oui.
Oh, la la.
And besides their 3 biological children, they did adopt 3 children. The first being Maddox, which actually Angelina Jolie had adopted before she was married to Brad Pitt. But once they did get married, he, you know, put in for the adoption of Maddox. And then they adopted children, Pax and Zahara, as well. Brad Pitt is very much into humanitarian efforts. He's a co-founder of an organization called Not on Our Watch, whose effort is to stop mass atrocities across the globe. His interest in architecture, you know, believe it or not, you know, that didn't really show up,
No
you know, in his
idea,
life.
yeah.
That just kind of, you know, developed, I guess, as an adult. He became interested in architecture.
We see you, Mr. Pitt.
We see you, yeah. Very, you know, off the wall thing, I feel like, to become interested in, you know, without any schooling in it or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
But his interest in that led to the birth of a foundation called the Make It Right Foundation, where homes were built in the 9th Ward of New Orleans to sustain those affected by Hurricane Katrina. Those
love that,
those and similar architectural efforts continue today. So, you know, that's where he got his origin, but he still very much remains involved in architecture and being able to help those in need. And as well as those foundations, he and Angelina Jolie also started the Jolie Pitt Foundation, which utilizes donations to fund humanitarian efforts of all kinds across the world. Pitt has been known to struggle with alcoholism in his past, and he's been known to attend AA meetings. He was actually able to bond, you know, with a lot of people through that, mainly his fellow co-star Anthony Hopkins, which he starred in Legends of the Fall with, and Meet Joe Black, one of my, favorite rom-coms. I have it on DVD. It's wonderful.
Okay, confession, still haven't seen that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, we'll add that to our list.
Very good. Very interesting. But yeah, so they were able to bond, over that struggle with addiction and recovery, and they've become close friends through that, which was interesting to learn.
Yeah, I had no idea about that either. That's really cool.
And so that's a little background on Mr. Brad. I do have a couple fun facts for you.
Yay!
I want to mix it a little bit up. So throw some little fun tidbits in there.
Let's do it.
So he says he is not one to cry. He's not a big crier. However, when he watched the movie How to Train Your Dragon, he cried.
Stop it.
I know, he did.
We like to see it.
Yeah. He said that it was very emotional, seeing Hiccup lose his leg, and, how in the end they were able to bring together that community, like of them and the dragons,
Such
something
a powerful movie,
Yeah, they had such a hard time, in the beginning, and, just to see them come together so peacefully was emotional for him.
Love it.
His favorite candy is Twizzlers, and his go-to cereal is Frosted Flakes.
I mean, okay.
I would not have expected that, but
no, very responsible of it.
I can't throw shade on that. Frosted Flakes are fun and all.
Great.
Exactly, they're great. He enjoys producing movies more than acting in them, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I guess he's gotten a little bit over it. He's probably been in so much now. He's just like,
he's played so many roles. I bet getting to be part of the more creative side of that is interesting.
Yeah, to see a different side of the whole film industry.
Yeah, that's really cool.
He has his pilot's license.
Okay.
He was kind of pushed into it by his wife or ex-wife, Angelina Jolie. She liked to get places quickly, and in turn she was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And he's like, actually, that sounds kind of fun. And ended up working out for him in the long run. He said he really loves it.
So cool.
He said growing up, one of his favorite movies was Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta, which I have not seen, but I saw
I was afraid to say it out loud, but me
either. I saw some very spicy pictures of John Travolta on these
maybe
tight pants and everything.
Future episode? Okay.
Could be. His first film role was in Dark Side of the Moon from 1988. And interestingly enough, when he played in the movie Troy, he played as Achilles. He actually tore his Achilles tendon.
Oh, God.
While filming as Achilles in Troy.
No.
Which I was like, all right. I mean, if there's a sign that tells you you're made for this part, I'd say that's it. That'll do it.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And another, I'll throw a little true crime in here, which is interesting, an interesting find. In 1999, a woman by the name of Athena Rolando broke into his Hollywood home, where she dressed in his clothes and waited for him. Imagine that, just coming home and you're like, what is happening here? Those are my clothes? Who are you?
There's two sides of this. For one, what the heck? And this poor man. But on the other side, I mean, it's Brad Pitt. If you knew where he lived and you knew how to get in and there was a chance he wouldn't get caught,
you're like,
don't tell me you wouldn't maybe think about it for a second.
Why not do it? Why not just put on his clothes? Why don't you just,
see what
smell
they smell
them?
like? Yes.
Yeah, see what it feels like to be the man, It's
not to advocate something that is obviously very wrong on so many levels, but, a
part of me says same.
Yeah.
It's like that episode of New Girl when Nick meets Jess's new boyfriend who's super rich, and he goes in his office and he's like, and he sees the sweater on the back of the chair and he puts it on and he sits down and he starts acting like he's the president. He's like,
it's so cringy and it's so wrong and unethical, but I mean,
right? Can we really blame her? All right, so those were our fun facts. And now we're moving into his best movie, which according to Rotten Tomatoes is the movie Moneyball, which came out in 2011. It received a 94% by the critics and 86% by the audience.
Interesting. Okay. I
Which
didn't
is-
expect that big of a discrepancy there.
Yeah, I actually say that it tends to be pretty common as far as Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
If there is a good movie like that, usually critics and audience, they're around 10% difference.
Okay, okay.
But they usually come pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't realized.
Yeah, and this was a new one for both of us. Neither of us had seen this one, and I feel like we would be remiss if we did not mention that Kara and I both grew up in very religious, very structured home life, and
A little bit sheltered over here.
yes, exactly. We missed a lot.
Yeah.
And so this podcast is a good experience for us to like get out there and see all of these all life-changing movies
that are so normal in our culture and so talked about, but if you come from a more sheltered background, maybe like you just haven't been exposed to yet if you're like us.
Yeah. And it's so, I feel like film is just so I guess like polarizing is a good word to use it. Like it can really change your life. There are definitely movies that I've seen that have changed my life, and so this adventure is a good experience to see what we missed out on and be like, okay, these movies that we were barred from seeing really aren't that bad.
Like maybe it has like some cuss words in it, oh no, but I mean, like what a story and a life-changing thing to witness.
Exactly.
So
here we go, talking about Moneyball. The plot of this film follows Brad Pitt as a man named Billy Beane, who is the general manager of the Oakland A's. One day after facing too many losses with the team, he realizes that the conventional views on baseball is too misguided. Because of the team's losses, he is now challenged to build a good team out of a very small budget. He then meets Ivy League graduate Peter Brand, played by Jonah Hill, and immediately recognizes his potential in seeing these undervalued players, ones that people didn't really love, but he saw, something in them that could make them great if they just fostered that a little bit. So Bean then begins to recruit cheaper players that the scouts very much dislike, but they have passed Brand's statistical analysis of a potentially successful player. And the movie is actually based on a book by Michael Lewis. I feel like the beginning of the movie is so, it sets kind of like that serious and sad tone. It shows Brad Pitt sitting alone in the bleachers. And it immediately has you like wondering about him, like what's his story, why is he here, was he a previous player, was he a coach, or did he know someone that was in baseball, what has him here at night alone in the bleachers with his thoughts. You can obviously tell he's like carrying a lot of baggage, like he's very angry at the world, even though you can tell like these events did happen a long time ago. Here it is, it jumps in, like they're sitting at this meeting, him with the scouts, and they just got gutted because they lost, and it's unfortunate, but here they are having to pick up the pieces and deal with it. And it seems like more than anything, like the scouts in the room are just like, well, this sucks. Like they're not really there to offer any like constructive criticism or help. They're just like shooting down any ideas that come up. And Brad Pitt, I'm gonna refer to him that because I can't picture him as someone named Bean, Billy Bean. I just can't do it. But you can tell Brad is just trying really hard of like, what can we do, what can we change, and all these scouts, which I'm gonna say it right here. Why are there just a bunch of ancient old men on the scouting team? Like, we're not gonna have any young blood in here except for Brad, And they just this little committee going on. Like, you can tell that maybe this is a controversial thing to say, but usually when things are being run by a bunch of ancient old white men, that things are gonna go terribly wrong.
Whoop.
Ooh, there it goes. So here he is in this meeting, and he's just trying to come up with constructive ways to proceed from here. But all the scouts really care about is they just keep commenting on like, oh, well, this player, his girlfriend's ugly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
he walks wrong.
yeah, just like the tiniest little things that they're nitpicking, you know, and to think that they put that much thought into the players outside of their skill. They're just like looking at them saying, oh, you know, they look weird. You know, they must have low confidence because their girlfriend's ugly, or they have this hobby. So are they really that good at baseball? You know, all these things outside of like their actual skill and determination are being factored into, you know, how they're drafting these players. And you can tell, you know, after he leaves this meeting, he's like, where are we at? You know, what's going on? What am I going to do? Here I am, you know, as the GM, like, it's all on me. It's on my shoulders. And so he goes to this meeting, you know, where they're going to kind of negotiate drafting these players. And I love that, like, you can tell he's, like, nervous at this meeting because there's this bowl of peanuts on the table. And he's just going at him. He's just, like, shoveling these peanuts. He's like, please, like, give me some sustenance to make it through this freaking meeting, like, alive.
He's agitated throughout that whole movie.
Yes,
like, at every single moment, So,
yeah, we see, you know, that he's really nervous. He's in this meeting. He's just, like, going to town on these peanuts. And he notices that, you know, he throws out a player that he's interested in getting, and everybody starts whispering and stuff. And then here we see Jonah Hill, and he leans over, he whispers, you know, to the guy next to him, and then the guy goes to the guy in charge and whispers to him, and they send down the final decision. So yeah, you can tell, you know, Jonah Hill, he whispers, you know, to this guy who talks to the guy in charge, and then the decision is laid down. And you can tell, okay, this guy's got a little bit of sway.
Yeah, like, who is this person? This, like, he's not excessively attractive. He's not, like, the, like, typical corporate big shot, but here's a big decision being made by this nobody. So who is this guy? Yeah.
And I love that, you know, that thought, you know, pops into Brad's brain, and then he tracks him down afterwards, and he's like, who's your uncle?
And you can tell Jonah's heart is in his butt at this moment. Like, why is this guy talking to me?
He's like, I have no idea what's happening. You know, you're a big shot. You know, you're your GM for this team, and you're coming to talk to me.
To my little cubicle.
Exactly. He's like spying over his cubicle at Brad, and Brad's like giving him the eyes. And I love that. That's like, I feel like that's the classic rich person question is, who's your uncle? Or who's your dad?
What's
you
your connection?
Like, because there's no way you would just be here making those kinds of decisions when you're a nobody.
Like, what's your merit?
And if I remember right, he doesn't even say who he's related to. He just gives his credits. He says, you know, I'm an Ivy League graduate. I feel like I know enough about baseball to give at least a little bit of, you know, and you can tell he's not very confident, but
he's guarded too.
And he's afraid, of saying something controversial because really he is kind of a nobody. You know,
like, who is he to this man?
And you know, at this point, you know, they go out in the garage, and Jonah Hill's telling him, he's like, you know, here's these statistics, and I think if we look at, you know, batting averages and this, that, and the other of these players, you can use this math to be able to, you know, determine if these players can be good, you know.
And it's such a different way of doing things, and he's so passionate about it. But you can see Jonah Hill, by the way, like, credit to his acting in this, because he's so passionate, but he's also so aware of, like, the constraints put on him because of his situation, the fact that he is a nobody. And so you can see him, like, holding himself back and being kind of afraid of the skepticism, but also just so passionate about his research and what he's uncovered throughout this.
Exactly. He's got that underlying fire, like, you know, that
like, what a cool supporting role.
And I feel like immediately you can see this, like, repartee that goes between, you know, Brad and Jonah, and you're like, okay, they've got some good chemistry going on here. Like, this is gonna be good. And you know, I love that vibe that I get, you know, when Jonah Hill starts talking numbers, and I'm like, is he about to be Rain Man for this movie? Like, what is happening? Then we finally see, like, why Brad has all this anger, you know, underlying anger and everything. And it's, you know, I hate to use the word, but I mean, it was just a part. He's not a real guy, but he was a has-been, you know, like, you know, he had a good run. And then there at the end of his baseball career, he just really started to, you know, go downhill.
And just the bitterness of the fact that he had this, well, I'm sorry if I'm cutting ahead, but he had this scholarship offered to him, and and academically could have gone so far, but because he took the offer for baseball instead of furthering education, the bitterness of he took this chance, it didn't work out his way, and now he's having to struggle for a team that's struggling, and there's not a whole lot of hope for him.
He's left with the consequences of his choices, but also seeing it almost like replayed in front of him with this team that he's in charge of, you know, and it's like he feels this responsibility of like, how can I change this so they don't go down the same path that I had to, you know.
It's so personal for him.
And you know, back to Jonah Hill, I feel like it's so interesting to see how like his degree in economics like is being translated into baseball statistics, which I feel like wouldn't really, but I mean, he makes
unlikely.
it work. I gotta mention, you know, they're having this meeting where they are with the scouts once again, you know, and the scouts are just kind of like putting down all these players because of all of these irrelevant things. And of course, one of these old scouts has to say, oh, well, you know, he's been doing the weed. And I swear that's a quote. He said he was doing the weed.
That's how I talk about it.
I mean, that's how the teens say it these days, right?
Right.
Yeah, we're doing the weed. I feel like they're having this meeting, you know, with the scouts and everything. And one thing I didn't like is that they go into this meeting, he throws Brand, you know, Jonah Hill in the corner, and you can tell, you know, all the scouts are looking at him. They're like, who's this guy? Why is he here? You know, but Brad just jumps straight into the meeting like business as usual. And everyone's kind of like, what the heck is going on? But then Brad starts saying, you know, he'll kind of throw out an idea and then he'll point at Jonah Hill to explain. And everyone's like, what the heck is going on? Like, you know, why is he the one like laying down the law? Why is he the one like solidifying your decisions and everything? And I do feel like that it probably would have gone better with the scouts, like if Brad had said in the beginning, like, oh, this is Peter Brand, this is his background, this is why I think he's a valuable asset to, you know, our meetings and everything, why he could help our team be better. But instead, I feel like it was kind of cocky of him to just kind of put him in there and be like, okay, you're there for like backup, like to just...
Yeah, and cocky, but at the same time, one of the things I love about his character in this movie is the fact that he has this quiet confidence. He has, throughout the whole movie, he's doing something so different, and everybody's against him and saying he's crazy, but he feels no need to explain himself. And so, this is the new assistant manager, right? Like, this is something that he could explain to them, but he's not diplomatic about it, and he's not going to explain himself. He's just, like, going to go about it the way he's going to go about it, and they're going to adjust to it because they have no other choice. And I kind of admired that about this role, too.
Yeah, and in my notes I mentioned maybe he didn't want there to be any perceptions that, like, he wasn't still the number one, that he wasn't still the main man in charge, you know, like, that things were still going to be from him, even if he had, like, this consultant, you know, there, like, everything is still his decision. He's still the GM. And I really liked... there's a part where they're like explaining these new methods to everyone, you know, the methods that Brand has introduced, and he refers to them as card counters at the blackjack table. And I love that analogy. And also it was funny because it kind of leads back to the whole Rain Man thing. Like, I feel like, you know, here he is like fulfilling this like theme, you know, in my mind. And then surprise, we see Chris Pratt in here introduced as one of the players.
I was not expecting that when we started this movie.
No, not expecting at all. And he looks like a total baby, like just a teeny tiny baby. And you know, so they go and they recruit Chris Pratt, you know, because he's one of the undervalued ones. He has some issues. He has some I believe it was like nerve damage in his hands and stuff, and people really undervalued him, but he was an easy grab for the team. They're like, yeah, he's gonna be cheap, and I think if we work on him, you know, he'll be good. And that was controversial too, because you know, some of the other scouts and stuff were saying, you know, we don't recruit these guys to teach them. Like, we recruit them because they're good already. But, you know, Brad kind of says, like, well, things are changing, you know. I know we didn't do that in the past, but obviously with this new budget cut and everything, we have to do something different going forward in order to be successful, in order to be able to keep this team and, rise above the problems that are set in front of us. And it's really sad, to see Brad, like, it keeps flashing back and forth between like his old baseball days and to where he is now, and it's like, it's haunting him, that those images are always like in the back of his mind. I will say, though, I did not like the actor they chose for young him.
No, that was not. And maybe because we did see Brad Pitt as a man that age, that we know that's not what he looked like as a child. But yeah, it's not college age Brad Pitt. That's not.
No, he looked totally different, like super dark hair. I was like, what's happening? And that's why when they first showed the flashback, I was like,
who's this?
Who is this? What's happening here? Going back to kind of what you were saying before, I feel like he just has so much regret too about not being successful in his baseball career because his parents let him choose, which I feel like is so rare with, parents and children to have that opportunity of like, okay, college versus sports. Yeah. A lot of parents usually kind of put their foot down and say, I really think you should do.
Yeah, especially because it wasn't just like community college, like he had offers at like a prestigious. It was
Stanford.
Yeah. So to give up on something like that with that prestige, for baseball, that could or could not work out the way he wanted.
Yeah, and I think he feels like he failed his parents because they let him choose and he chose wrong. And that's another thing that just haunts him of. Like I could have done better by my parents,
Which is also part of what makes this movie so good is how relatable it is, because we've all had those moments where we could have chosen something so differently. But at the time we felt just so impassioned about that decision that that's the only way that we could stomach. And we look back and we're like, well, damn it.
Yeah. Like I could have done better, but it is what it is too. And here he is just trying to make the best of his situation.
Yeah. Real life stuff right there.
And then we see so much turmoil, with all these decisions that he's inputting, new things he's implementing and stuff. And these scouts are not happy. Yeah. And specifically the head scout, comes and talks to him. And he's telling Brad about, he has all this knowledge and experience because he's like 100 years old or whatever. And he's like, I know how to choose these players. But really, he says he's basing these choices on experience and, intuition and stuff, when really all it comes down to is the shallow things, like we said, like, if their girlfriends were hot.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't be more irrelevant, possibly.
Yeah, and that was, like, really the breakdown and why Brad had to make a move and be like, okay. And, that's why the head scout, boom, you're out. Like, you're being disrespectful. You're not listening to me. Yeah. And it's that moment where, the head scout looks at him and he says, you know what, Billy? Fuck you. And Billy says, now you're fired. Yeah. That's it.
And that felt like such a turning point in the movie, too. Like this one moment where he's like, okay, let's just goodbye all of you that aren't standing with me here.
Exactly. You know, and it was almost like he was, everything was bubbling up to that. And he was waiting for that one, you know, disrespectful moment where he could say, that's it. Yeah. You're done. It's not just that you disagree with me. It's that you were outwardly disrespectful to me. Yeah. And, I love that, in this, Brad Pitt is so realistic about things. He comes at it with not just like, I have a dream of blah, blah, blah. He tells them, he's like, at this point, it's adapt or die. The way we have been doing things is not working anymore. Obviously. We have to change. And I feel like a lot of these old people are just incapable of like understanding, that, it's like they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and they just are not willing to accept these new changes. Yeah. And, I love it. I put a note in here. I was like, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, but I mean, why are these baseball players, why are their butts so big? Like,
their butts are so nice.
Like all the time.
Yeah, and that's not just a movie thing. That is a real life thing. I mean, is it part of their workouts? Can they send them on to us? Because those are some nice butts in those little white pants.
And I love how that was probably like, when they're auditioning like these side cast members, they're like, all right, turn around, let me see your butt.
Yeah, let me see that butt.
Yeah, you're good. You passed the test. You can you can put on those white pants.
Yeah.
We got to see that butt.
Yeah, it's some good butts.
And I love that, you know, he starts building, you know, like this relationship with the players and stuff like that. And he says that he's not going to at first, but it, you know, it starts to happen. And, you know, there's that one moment where he's talking to that player and the player tells Brad, he's like, you know what, sir, I'm going to pray for your family.
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere, like he just says that. And Brad's just like, oh, no problem.
Yeah, like, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, I'm like, I've definitely been in that situation
Yeah.
before as like someone who's not religious and someone you don't know says like, oh, I'll pray for you. And you're like,
thanks, you too.
cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I appreciate the sentiment, but you know.
I'm uncomfortable.
And yeah, like I said, like I feel like the team is starting to grow like so much with him and like showing so much loyalty towards him because he believed in them, you know, when no one else would. He, you know, believed that they could be good players.
Yeah, like it must be so frustrating for these guys who really like on their merit of how they can play the game are amazing, and they know that about themselves on some level, but they're discounted because they throw the ball weird when they're pitching, or because they've been injured before in a different position that they played, or whatever the reason may be. It's such a sad shame for them to be discounted, knowing that they could be so much.
Yeah, and I love too that, you know, while everything is feeling, you know, kind of dark and gloomy and things are against them and stuff like that, I love the relationship that Brad has with his daughter.
Oh my God, the daughter is so precious in this movie. Yeah.
She is, and the little song that she has with him, you know,
it's been stuck in my head since we watched it, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it ends up being like, you know, in the movie, you see him like in the car and he puts that CD in, and it's like exactly what he needed to hear. You know, like that he's stuck in the middle, and that, you know, life is a riddle, you know, and all this stuff, and you know he feels that in his heart, and to hear that coming from his daughter, like, is just like so grounding for him, and he's like, I can do this, you know, things are hard, but I can do this. And you know, every moment that he has with his daughter is so pure, even though everything around him, you know, kind of feels like it's falling apart at times.
That's the one time you see him actually genuinely just relaxed and smiling.
And I love that scene. I have to say, I think my favorite scene, you know, is when things are really picking up and everything, and he and Jonah Hill sit down with that meeting, and they're like, okay, we're gonna trade and draft some new players.
Oh my God, this scene.
And it is just like wham bam, thank you ma'am, like back and forth. You know, he tells Jonah, you know, like, oh, I want to trade so and so, who's the best person to trade him for. And you know, he does this thing on the computer and stuff, and then he says to his receptionist, I can't remember her name, but
get so and so on the line.
He's like, Joanne, get Scott on the line, and she's like, boom, and then they talk to him and they put him on hold so they could figure out, you know, who they're gonna trade. And I feel like that's such a high moment, you know, for Brad. He's like, I can do this, like I have this like negotiation skill,
so
like
on his feet.
And he gets it, and that connection too with Jonah, that they can do this together, like,
and they're bouncing off each other, but also Jonah Hill is portraying what we're all feeling as the audience of like, what the crap is happening here.
He's like, I don't really know what's happening, but I can look at my numbers and I can get back to you. And it's so great. And I love that part when he's talking to that one guy on the phone, and he says like, okay, I want to trade this guy for this guy. And the guy's like, okay, I think I can do that. And boom, Brad hangs up. And Jonah's like, wait, what's happening? And he says, quote, when you get the answer you're looking for, hang up. And I'm like, that's just the solution to my life. Like, as someone who has phone anxiety, like, that's it. That would solve all my problems.
When we get back to work next week, like, that's going to be us when we make our phone calls.
We're like, hey, you have a prescription ready to be picked up. And they say, okay, boom.
Bye.
All right, I got the answer I wanted. We're good now. So, you know, here we go. Things are really picking up and everything. And it comes down to, you know, Brad has that real conversation and says, like, look, I understand we're not going to win every game. But he said, I hate losing more than I love to win. You know, and he just has that like determination of like, if we win, that's great, but please, like, I don't want to lose. You know, and that's why and that's one big thing we see too, is that he never goes to the games.
Right.
You know, it's like he has that fear inside of him. He doesn't want to see what he experienced replayed in front of his eyes.
Or he feels like he's bad luck for it even. Like he was such bad luck for his own career. I wondered too if it was a matter of like he felt like he's going to jinx it with his presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and really here at the end, it's just like, it's about changing the game for him, you know, now that he's seeing the success. And then we start to see, you know, their algorithm starts working.
Yeah, it does.
And they win 1 game, they win 3 games, 5, and then they end up breaking the record. And I think where it ends off is at 19 wins in a row.
Right.
And it's incredible, you know.
Yeah.
And they end up, I think after the 19 wins, they lose that next one.
Yeah.
You know, and it sucks and everybody's down about it and everything. Brad says, really, what matters is the last game of the season. As long as we can win that last game, that will determine what everyone thinks of us going forward.
Right.
And then you see there at the end, you know, Brad ends up getting that meeting with the Boston Red Sox guy. He's getting schmoozed. He's getting, you know, the nice fancy coffee.
Yeah.
You know, I think we said it when we were watching it. We're like, you know, the coffee's fancy when they bring it out in tiny cups.
Yeah. Yeah. The smaller the portion, the fancier the item.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So he's getting schmoozed, you know, and then this guy totally does the thing where he slides the paper across the table, and he's like, there's a number on that paper. Let me know if you're cool with it or not. I want you.
Yeah.
Now he's having this struggle of like, do I do this? Do I take the money? Like, this is something I've always wanted to be, like, successful in baseball and everything. Yeah. But what does this say about me? What does taking this money say about me?
Yeah.
And he ends up talking to Jonah Hill, and, you know, Jonah Hill tells him, like, it's not that, like, you're taking the money for, like, selfish reasons, but the money tells you that you're worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that was so important for him to hear, too, of, like, he is good at what he does, you know, and he really did. He believed in these players when no one else did. Like, he's a good guy, and he's worth every, you know, cent of that money that the Red Sox was willing to, you know, give him. And in the end, you know, he doesn't end up taking the money. You know, he felt like it was more important, his loyalty, you know, to the Oakland A's, you know, and showing them, like, I'm here in the long run, you know, no matter what.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I just feel like it was such a, you know, incredible film, you know, even as people who, you know, don't really know much about sports or baseball or anything, like, it still was really, you know, it made you learn a lot, like, about yourself, you know, and just about the human condition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And,
I said in my notes, it speaks to the movie quality that I got chills and emotional over all the wins when I literally give no shits about baseball. Like, I could not care less. I could care not less. I could not care less. But, yeah, I mean, just the emotions that this movie stirred up, it speaks a lot to it, because this is not a topic that I'm passionate about, but the human, the emotions behind it, and the significance of this role, and the things that he's learning about what it means to be successful, not monetarily, not winning, but seeing the good in other people and doing things that speak to your own heart, and just like all these qualities, those stir the emotions for sure. And I mean, that's Moneyball. And I feel like, you know, we probably could have gleaned some more from it if we were into baseball, but it's still you know, like you said, it still was so moving, like it was, you know,
to see someone and really, like, I don't know, like, it seems so silly, but it does give me chills, like how at the end, you know, when Jonah tells him, like, you know, it's not about taking the money, it's just that the money tells you how much you're worth. You know, and for him to, in the end, to learn his worth. And I feel like that was the overarching, like, for me at least, the moral of the story that I took away. Of, like, when you put in your hardest work, you know, and do the best you can by the people that are next to you, you know, that shows your worth. And you know, I really love that. And then just also the themes of underdogs. You know, Jonah Hill is the underdog, and these players on this whole team underdogs, and this team is history, and Brad Pitt, you know, all underdogs, and seeing them win is always just such a good movie. But then the acting that he does in this movie is just it's subtle, and it's not big gestures, right? You know, like, for the most part, he's pretty stoic. Except when he's throwing
Except
things.
when he's not. I mean, just this was such a good showcase of Brad Pitt and his acting abilities, because it was so, extreme. It was so many small, quiet moments and nuances that you pick up on. And then when he finally does something so out of character, he's just so real. You know, his role was so real because of the acting.
Yeah,
that he
and
does.
you see yourself in him sometimes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, there was a time where he, like, you know, he was all cool and collected, but then something happened and he got pissed off and he threw it. And then he took a second and he said, okay.
Yeah.
And then he moved
we've
on.
all been there.
Yep.
You just
And
gotta
I've been
throw
like,
something sometimes.
yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. Like, you have that outburst and then you're like,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Moneyball.
That is.
And I would
Good
say,
job, Sequoia.
I give Moneyball.
Drum roll.
I give Moneyball 6 balls out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay.
6.5.
Okay.
6.5 out of 10.
6.5. Okay.
What do you think?
I mean, I would have given it a solid 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, subject matter, baseball, not my thing, but the acting and the emotional feels are what I get off on, and they were all solid. So, yeah. Regardless, definitely a good movie.
Yeah, very good. All right, I'm gonna hand this over to you. Now we are gonna cover the worst movie by Brad Pitt.
The worst movie by Brad Pitt, and also maybe the worst movie of all time. I mean, he is a wonderful, amazing actor, just fantastic. But this movie makes me sad for him that he had to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable.
Oh my god. This movie has been referred to as Roger Rabbit on acid, which is a kind way of putting that.
Yeah.
It was
I feel like it's a little derogatory towards Who Framed
towards
Roger
Rabbit.
I love that movie.
yeah. I mean, it took me 4 times of watching this movie before I could finally get through it. But we got through it, guys, and we have thoughts. And there were good things and there were bad things cut. So as far as Rotten Tomatoes goes, 4% by critics.
Ouch. That's bad.
31% by audience. And the only way I can describe that, I was looking through some of the reviews for this movie just because, I mean, it was a movie and it sold tickets and people liked it and it's still streamable. Why?
I don't know.
Because some people are very big fans of Ralph Bakshi, the writer of this movie, and he does have his own unique style, and that's something. And I guess also just, I mean, if you grew up around the time we grew up, Space Jam is awesome, right? But if that movie came out today, we'd be like, what? Mm-hmm. You know, it's nonsensical, and we have other methods of telling stories in movies now today that make these very obsolete and bizarre. So maybe if we did watch this in 1992 when it came out, we'd feel differently. But it's not it for me, my folks. Came out 1992, begins in 1945, but we jump forward a little bit later on. It is an hour and 42 minutes of Roger Rabbit on acid. Written by Ralph Bakshi. Now, I looked him up on IMDb. A lot of his work is animated. I don't recognize any of them, but that's not saying anything because I don't know most movies, right? But it was directed by 2 people, one of which was Michael Gray. Now, he directed Poltergeist of 1982. Did you ever see that?
I believe I have. I think we watched that this last Halloween. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That was like my family's classic. Like my brothers would put that on to scare the poo out of me because like the little sister, right, is taken by the poltergeist. And I was little sister family, and it terrified me, but I loved it growing up. So it was really cool to see that was directed by him. Yeah. Our main cast, obviously Brad Pitt. We'll get all into his character here in a minute. But the supporting roles, we have Kim Basinger. She's playing the voluptuous, beautiful Doodle. I'll explain what Doodle means in a minute. What I recognized her from was she played in Batman alongside Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. So have you ever seen that Batman? Did you grow up on that like I did?
Which one?
The one with Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson. He's the Joker. I know I'm a little bit older than you. It's okay if you say no.
I saw a lot of the old ones. Remind me who else is in it. Because, like, no, I'm sure I have because I think we had all of them on VHS. But the one that always sticks in my brain is, I think it's the George Clooney one when it has Mr. Freeze and it has... And
Yeah,
it has
Arnold
Uma Thurman
Schwarzenegger.
as
Yeah,
Poison Ivy.
Okay.
Ugh,
Okay.
girl, that
yeah.
took my, by itself
Oh.
for a ride.
Oh,
Seeing Uma
yeah.
Thurman as Poison Ivy, I was
That
like,
was
woo!
possibly potentially that, and then the girl on Susie Q, were the my sexual awakening for those two. So anyway, she plays like the blonde femme fatale in that. And then finally we have Gabriel Byrne. He plays Jack Deebs. So he's our animator in this movie. We'll get into his character. Again, he's been in a lot of things. He has a great acting career. I recognize him from none of it because I've seen so few movies, but the one that he's most known for is War of the World.
Okay, because I never looked it up, but
You
when
recognize
I was
his
watching
face, right?
it, I was like, he looks so familiar.
I feel like he's one of those faces that we all know, but unless you are a lot more well versed in movies than I am, it's just a face that you know that belongs in Hollywood somewhere. I have a confession for you, Sequoia. This movie was a lot and I couldn't follow, and I had to copy my synopsis from IMDb, and I'm sorry, love me anyway. It's just so much.
No, I do not love you. Ugh, I'm so mad.
It's so much. I loved you enough to watch this 4 times. Okay.
I will accept this
Thank
one
you.
time.
This one time. It will
This
never
one
happen
time,
again, I guarantee.
Never again.
Okay. So here we go. IMDb. The film's plot, it transposes 2 alternate dimensions: the real world and then the cool world. A world of animated characters called Doodles. The film begins in 1945 era Las Vegas. Frank Harris, a returning GI, which is our love Brad Pitt, is reunited with his mother. Soon he takes her for a ride on his motorcycle, and they're involved in an accident resulting in her death. Grieving and hallucinating, he's transported into another dimension, the fully animated cool world. So in this moment, we see him back from the war, and he's so happy, and he's got his mom who's just like freaking baking apple pie and putting it on the windowsill, that kind of mom, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so wholesome, so pure, so happy that her little boy just came back from the war. And then they get in this wreck and she dies, right? All his fault. He's grieving. He just survived the war, lost his mother after convincing her to ride on his motorcycle. And so very sad moment, and it's one of those moments where the audience is just like, what the crap? And then we are just jarred into a world of Looney Tunes style animation, and it's not expected, and we don't know what to think about it.
I feel like it's so sad leading into, the accident when,
Yeah.
it's almost like Brad Pitt does like the OG, look, Ma, no hands.
Yeah,
with the motorcycle, and then you're
Yeah.
like, this can't end well.
No, yeah.
No.
In this moment, it's the beginning of the movie, everything's happy, everything's great. He's just gotten home from war. Like, something's going to go very badly wrong, and then it does. And so that part, yeah, you're kind of expecting it. But this animation, my dude, what?
Nothing could have prepared us
was so
for this
jarring.
animation. It was...
I was hoping he was having a fever dream and then we were going to come back. But
Right?
nah.
No, it
No.
was real.
It was real and we were stuck there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so-
I felt as stuck there as he felt
I
stuck
know,
there.
I know. Maybe that's part of the genius that all of these reviewers were talking about with the writer, is that, he's taking us to the world and we feel stuck there just like he does. Maybe that's part of the genius. But I'm sorry. Nah.
No. It doesn't do it for me.
So, in the film, we flash forward to 1992. So we have a cartoonist, Jack Deebs, and this is, again, played by Gabriel Byrne. He's been in jail for murdering a man that he found in bed with his wife. Okay, no hate, I get it. During his prison sentence, he has visions of the cool world and the sexy blonde doodle Hollywood. Okay, played by our Kim Basinger. Ow. Okay, to be fair, this cartoon, if I was gonna fall for a cartoon, it would be King Triton from Little Mermaid, or it would be her. I mean, wowzers.
Wow, that's a bold statement to make. I feel like I'm always sticking with, like, if we're choosing cartoons.
Yeah. Who would you choose? Let's hear.
Oh, it's got to be Meg from Hercules.
I was so scared you were gonna say Meg from Family Guy. Okay, no.
No.
I can see
I
that
hate
though.
that show. No, I would never.
Yeah. No, I can see it, and I love her demeanor in that movie. Yeah.
How you doing, Herc?
Yeah,
I
she's
love
just
her.
so sarcastic and
Yes.
not interested, and I love her for it.
Oh yeah.
So enters her So Deeps passes the time by creating this comic book series based on his visions of Cool World, and then shortly after being released from prison and returning to his home in Las Vegas, Deeps is pulled into the Cool World by Holly. Also sad for him that he's stuck in prison. He could have been pulled in at any moment, but now he's pulled in that he's finally free.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the heck, Holly? Couldn't have saved him?
But hey, I mean, by the way he's looking at these doodles up on his sketch pad, I think he wants to be transported to Cool World.
That's
He
what I'm
said,
saying.
Holly, take me. I'm ready.
Right. So enter my own note here. This is when it gets real weird, right? And I say weird like I'm hating on it. It's interesting, and I feel like has symbolism, and if you're tripping on acid, maybe the way the writers were, it would make perfect sense to you. But if a human has sex with a doodle, the doodle turns real. Okay?
And don't they call it getting made?
Yeah, getting made, like getting laid, but you're getting made into a real person. I just
Mhm.
now got that this moment. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Killing a humanoid, human.
Yes.
Then they turn them into a doodle. Okay. So back to our synopsis. Thank you, IMDb, for keeping things straight that my poor sober brain could not. Holly wants to have sex with Deeps so she come real and feel things and enter the real world, but sexual relationships between Noids, which are humans, and doodles, which are toons, are illegal in Cool World. Frank Harris, aided by his partner Nails, the spider-like doodle, keeps a sharp eye on all Holly and Deeps. Their job is to make sure that humans don't have sex with our cartoons, since that act can rupture the fabric between two universes. The twist lies in the fact that after all these years, Harris has fallen in love with Lynette, a sexy animated waitress. By the way, when you were watching this, did you think she was a waitress when she was standing out on the street corner?
No, I mean, they
Yeah.
definitely don't, like, lead with that. They're like,
Yeah.
I think in my notes I put at some point, like, I think it's her. She's standing outside of an establishment that says massage upstairs or something like that.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Okay, I was making sure. Yeah, because I did not assume that she was a waitress either. Okay, so meanwhile, Holly and Deeps have sex, and she turns into a Noid. Oh, wow. So Deeps and Holly head to Deeps' home dimension. The barrier between the Cool World and the real world has been damaged. Deeps and Holly repeatedly turn into clown-like doodles. So there's this one part where she's dancing and singing just like she used to do when she was a doodle, getting all of the attention, and she's loving the fact that she's in a real body and getting the attention of all these real people, just like she's always wanted. But she keeps turning into like this animated clown, and at first they're like, what the crap? And then like they think it's part of the act and they're all cheering, and again you're just stuck in like this weird like early 90s moment of like, I guess they think that that's what it would look like if we turned animated.
yeah. And I mean, part of me when I watched that, I was like, are they really seeing her turn into a cartoon? And if so, how are their reactions that calm? I feel like if I'm watching a performer on stage and they all of a sudden blip into a cartoon,
like Looney Tunes
I might
style
pass
cartoon.
out.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not applauding.
No, I'm not sitting there like, oh, how cool. You know, I'm saying, what the fuck? Like,
this movie has been
what the hell is happening?
Bananas. Yeah, for so many reasons among this one. In Las Vegas, Holly manages to find the golden spike of power, which keeps the inter-world matrix between Cool World and the real world intact. Again, this might be part of where it says that this is Roger Rabbit on acid. I think this is where the acid comes in. It turns her back into a doodle, releases many monstrous doodles into the real world. Deeps turns into a super-powered humanoid doodle and puts the golden spike back in its place. Deeps is stuck, perhaps forever, in the Cool World, but he has plans to marry Holly. Harris is killed trying to stop Holly, but in the process is reborn as a doodle because, again, if you get killed as a human, you turn into a doodle. It allows him to pursue his relationship with Lynette. Okay, so he ends up happily ever after. He's in the Cool World. He's also a doodle, so now he gets to finally become one with his girl, the quote waitress.
Honestly, you know, I'm gonna say it right now. I think that Lynette deserved better. I think that she was pretty great. I loved her. She was like your classic. It's interesting because, you know, he goes Brad goes to Cool World in what? I think it was 45 or something
Right,
like that.
1945, yeah.
It almost feels like in some aspects, like Cool World is stuck in that time, but also in other aspects, it's totally in, you know, in the future. 92. Yeah, like the way that the club is set up in Cool World, the way Holly's dancing, like that's very 92. But then when you meet Lynette, you know, with her hairstyle and her makeup and stuff and the way she talks, it's very much more, you know, and it's almost like she was made for, you know, for Brad, because that's the time era he came from. And so obviously I feel like he's gonna, you know, bond with her because it feels familiar but safe. Because
okay, so I'm really glad that you went down that road, because me being me, I couldn't just take this movie for the plot. There has to be something deeper, right? And especially like a movie like this, it's not just about what it's about, you know. So we're gonna deep dive, right? So here in a minute we'll get to why is this woman exactly the perfect type for Brad Pitt, or his character Harris in this movie. But my first note post synopsis was that this is a dialogue about mental illness. So specifically, there's the PTSD, right? Of Brad Pitt. He gets home from the war, probably PTSD involved. You see, like when they have the car wreck, like he's flinching. There's the sound going around him that he feels like is warfare. He's talking about like getting to safety. He's back in the war. And then whatever mental illness is going on with Jack Deebs, because he's got some interesting stuff going on his own. So it's about escaping. It's about struggling to go back to the real world after you escape, because when you go back you have to face the difficult feelings, and you can stay lost in another dimension forever for the sake of avoidance. A quote that I grabbed from the movie for this part of my thought vomit was when Harris, you know, Brad Pitt says, "Baby, you and me, I can't have that in the real world. I can't live without you, but I can't be with you. What do you do, huh? What do you do?" Lynette says, "Well, we're just going to have to pretend then, aren't we?" So it's just kind of like an allusion to we're staying stuck in this other place because we're pretending, because we can't go back to the reality of it. And then my favorite part of the deep dive was, whose world are we really living in? Harris, he's escaping his own delirium. Jack Deebs, he's stuck in prison and he caught his wife cheating on him. What does he have to go back to? He's creating the cool world as a reflection of his own psyche. There's sex, there's violence, there's instability, there's just craziness all around him.
And I feel like there's Hollywood, you know, to replace.
Girl. I love you for saying that, because that's where we're heading. So Jack Deebs, he says, "I'm a cartoonist. I do all this. I have visions. I translate this. So is this his world?" And Harris says, "You do nothing, man. This place exists with or without you. You believe me, right? I'm not one of your creations." And then we love this part because Deeb says, "Right, you're not pretty enough." And Harris like, "Good one, have a seat." Oh, ouch, 6 burn. But yeah, Holly, that was my favorite part of this. Is her name is Hollywood. Holly, and then like WOLULD.
And Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, she
would. Yeah, she would.
If her performance in that movie was indication of anything, Hollywood do anything.
Yeah. We're not slut shaming here.
No, of course not.
So she pulls Jack into this world, and they talk in the movie about how she tries to sleep with any Noid that comes in, because she's in chase of stardom. She wants to be real. She wants to be the real deal, and she wants to be bigger than this life that she has. And according to this construct of the cool world, she has to sleep her way into that, the way that a lot of actresses have been shamed and portrayed as sleeping their way into stardom, right?
Wow.
So yeah,
talk about deep dive. I love you for thinking of it like that.
We're gonna go there.
I
mean, I feel like it really, like, she's feeling all this pressure to be more than she is, and she, in this world, she literally has no other option. But then, like, in the real world, our actresses sometimes don't have any other options, but also sometimes if they do have success because of their own ability, the dialogue is, "Oh yeah, she slept her way into their position." And it's not just acting, any corporate
Always
position. It's any position.
sex,
Yeah,
comes
because
back to
what
that.
else do females have to offer?
Yeah, especially in Hollywood.
Right. Yeah, I feel like her character in this one was also like, it was a lot. Now I will say one of the quotes that I wrote down had to have been written by a man. Was Harris told her, keep your legs crossed and forget about the real world. Ouch.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah. But that is the story, and that is kind of like some of the deeper dives that we can take into what it's getting across. I found some interesting tidbits that I feel like almost happened with this movie that could have made it so much better. Right? That could have taken that, what was it, 4% on Rotten Tomatoes up to better than it was?
Maybe 5%, 6 if we're being generous.
So honestly, a big part of it was the animation. It was initially intended to be an animation / live action horror film.
Oh.
Can you imagine that same feel, but instead of like the Looney Tunes animation and the really annoying side of those characters that were so just flat, having it as an actual horror film. So like the animation part of it being a lot more edgy and scary, right? Rather than like Space Jam,
Yeah, I mean, I can see so many elements of that movie that could have easily, you changed it one tiny bit and it's horrible. I mean, because it already is, if I'm being honest. It's pretty horrifying. So, just changing it a tad could definitely.
I feel like it may have been the original idea of it. It could have been really cool having it an actual horror film instead of trying to make it. They altered it this way to make it more PG, to make it more accessible, right? So having it R-rated like they originally wanted would be excluding it from more households, especially in 1992.
Yeah. And what's crazy to me is that the few people that I know, personally, that have seen this film, I'm
surprised you know anybody.
Yes, but they watched it growing up, and that is wild to me, especially seeing all the sexual elements and stuff like that.
I know.
To be like, oh, these people watched it as children and they liked it. Like one of our friends, she said she watched it growing up and she said, oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. And then
I
like went over her head and she didn't realize, or
I don't know. Like, I don't know. And
I feel like there are a lot of 90s movies that we just didn't realize how raunchy it was.
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but some movies that we're raised with, they're good to us at the time.
Yeah.
So they have that nostalgic feeling to us, so they're good to us later on, even though they may not really be good films.
But yeah, I feel like that is an interesting part of it is, I mean, Kim Basinger, when she came on, she wanted to make it, but she mentioned about halfway through the production, she wanted to make it a movie where they could take it to 6 children dying of cancer and show it to them, because it has that escapism, it has coping. So the director was like, if you had brought this to me sooner, absolutely, but we're too far in and this is not child appropriate. But if they had gone that direction with it, with like, some of the really cool movies that we have today, finally, in the past few years, about Inside Out, about feelings, about coping, about understanding mental illness, if they had turned it into that in 1992, how cool would that have been?
Very progressive for the time, definitely.
Or alternatively, if they had gone ahead and just like, Tim Burton fucking dark, scary animation, not having that jarring, like, these are complex feelings and emotions and concepts, and here are these crazy, like, Disney-esque weird cartoons to go with it. The juxtaposition just apparently is for some people, and it's an art style. It was not for us.
No.
But it's out there.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I saw just like in the production process, and this is the last thing, is that the writer, so Ralph Bakshi, he wanted Brad Pitt to actually play Jack Deebs. So he was going to play the darker character that's in prison and animating everything. And I feel like that would have been pretty cool to see. I would have preferred that. I feel like, he not, again, no disrespect to our man, the myth, the legend, Brad Pitt. If anyone's going to play that role well, it would have been him.
Yes.
But he's stuck acting in this really weird room by himself with cartoons. It was an impossible thing for him to do, and he did it well, and that jawline was on point the entire time.
Of course it was. He definitely had that sharp, and I mean, he was so young at that point too, that he really had that cut to him, like that a young man would. And I feel like he did good, as far as like that time. era that he was
what a
portraying
weird time
and everything.
for cinema. Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely do think, because we talked about how, like, Fight Club was like when he really was able to show his, dynamic acting skills, and he was able to show a different side of himself.
Yeah.
And what if he did get to play Jack Deebs in this?
Yeah.
Maybe he could have broke through in Hollywood sooner. Maybe he could have, really brought life to the Jack Deebs character. Not saying that, the other actor didn't.
No, yeah, he did great.
However,
yeah.
we're
and
just...
another option that they were really wanting, first option they wanted, was William Dafoe.
Really?
Yeah, which would have also been interesting.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I feel like that would have been
some Green Goblin moments.
ooh,
yeah,
high on their budget though.
Yeah,
depending on how big he was at the time. I don't know quite.
I don't quite know either. But so to wrap up the whole Cool World moment, there are a lot of things that I think you just have to be a very specific kind of audience to enjoy, and that's fine if you do. Does not speak to the masses.
No,
it does not. However, some of the cooler elements were the fact that we're speaking about mental illness in a time where it's not openly spoken about in 1992. Just in the past decade, within the past 5 years, I feel like it's more of a dialogue. So cool that we're having that discussion in some artistic form.
Yeah.
There were things that could have been interesting to see how it would have come out differently if they had gone a different direction like they had originally wanted to. And really my takeaway is, if we turned that into a drinking game, you take a shot every time it gets just so cringy, or there's a very
sexual moment.
Yes, it's very sexual, but also just a very sexist moment. It could have been a more interesting movie. I'm just saying.
You'd probably be going to the hospital for alcohol poisoning by the end, but
it would be a better night though.
Hey, at least it would have made the movie passable.
Yes.
I feel like
glad to have that one in the books.
Definitely interesting too. And I love that your perspective on that as far as like the mental illness thing, and to think about, because they did just do that new like Space Jam movie and stuff like that. What if, I highly doubt it considering how terribly Cool World was viewed, but if they did take that and did a Space Jam thing, and made it new and relevant and stuff, if they could take it that direction, and how cool that would be. And also how redeeming for people who were fans of it back in the day to see it come back, but with a good twist, instead of being, raunchy and sexist and just
a lot
absolutely
of
wild.
Yeah. Well, there concludes our cool world moment.
Oh, it was definitely cruel as well.
It was very cruel. That's a Freudian slip right there.
All right, well, that's where we fall on Mr. Brad Pitt. And, we hope you tune in next week. Our next week is going to be hosted by my co-host, Miss Kara.
Yes,
and
it is.
She's going to be doing
Sandra Bullock in all of her glory.
All right, here we go. I feel like that's a good, solid follow-up to Brad Pitt.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and this is where we let everyone know where to find us on our socials. First of all, we have on Facebook at GMH Podcast is where you can find us there. And then you can find us on Instagram at GMH Podcast. And as well, you can also find us on Twitter at GMH Pod.
Yeah.
All right. And we hope you will tune in next week. And this is us signing off. This is Miss Sequoia Blackburn.
And Kara Harbor.
Thank you very much. And we hope you have some good movie hunting. Willem Dafoe has a giant dick.